Congressman James Walkinshaw, a Democrat from Virginia. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So you sit on committees where you do have some scrutiny of Homeland Security and oversight. The House, of course, passed this massive funding infusion into the Department of Homeland Security for ICE. They're on track to be our largest law enforcement agency. It turns out now the Senate is going to be the ones to raise questions. What can they do?
Well, first, important to note that bill that passed the House is part of the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. Republicans overwhelmingly voted for. Democrats didn't.
Yeah,
that's
just
a bill
to show people the ICE budget now. This is what's in play.
Yeah, that's a bill that took money from health care and put it into ICE and DHS. Look, what should happen at this point is the Senate should separate the DHS bill out from the package, which is what happened in the House. We had a separate vote on the larger package and the DHS bill. Separate it out, pass the larger package, and negotiate for the common sense protections American people are demanding from DHS.
So it's worth a shutdown. We went into this week where I feel like for months people have been saying Senator Schumer doesn't want another shutdown. Nobody won last time, and it sounds like the Democrats feel like the politics have changed and that you can go through another shutdown if it's over ICE.
I don't want there to be a shutdown. Like I said, we should return. The House should return this week. We can negotiate to end the masking, to require use of force standards so officers are disciplined when they violate them, and the other protections that are just common sense that the American people want. Speaker Johnson should bring the House back to do that, and the Senate should separate the bills, pass the larger package, fund that part of the government, and negotiate over DHS.
One other thing, you have called for Secretary Noem to be impeached. Do I have that correct?
That's correct.
Now, obviously, this would depend on Democrats taking the House, et cetera.
Right.
But is that worth your time? I mean, I remember Nancy Pelosi saying, look, don't bother trying to impeach Trump. Do you want to go through that kind of conversation again over Kristi Noem?
I think one of the things that's unique about Kristi Noem is there is bipartisan frustration with Kristi Noem in Congress. She has failed to get resources to communities in the wake of natural disasters that desperately need it.
So this is under the FEMA capacity.
That's right. And she funded a $220 million advertising campaign that was largely self-promotion and funneled $100+ million of that to her political allies. And I think even in the Trump White House, they're frustrated with how she handled the aftermath of this Alex Pretty killing. So I think she is on the ropes. I believe she's violated her oath of office. I think the fact that there have been 2,300 documented cases of DHS officers illegally detaining
But are there
people.
any Republicans in the House? I want to ask this list of questions you have. You're saying there's frustration, but will there be bipartisan action?
I hope there will be. I think if they hear from their constituents some of these frustrations, there will be. Republicans have asked questions, especially about the disaster funding not getting out the door in Texas in the wake of the floods.
My panel is going to have a couple questions here, but I want to ask you one more thing, which is this movement to return to the mantra of abolish ICE. Some people disagree. Chuck, are you a disagree with abolish ICE person? I can't remember.
Yeah, I disagree.
Okay. We'll come back to you then. Do you want to see Democrats using that phrase again? Does it symbolize something that's worth returning to?
I think the problem with that phrase is it puts all of the focus on ICE. And we know now, and we talk about Alex Pretty, it wasn't an ICE officer, it was CBP. We got thousands of CBP officers who have committed some of the most egregious abuses. So I think all of it, the entire mass deportation, mass destruction apparatus the Trump administration has put together, has to be rebuilt from the ground up in a way that's consistent with our values, consistent with the Constitution.
So you think there's a Democratic constituency after all this that's going to be like, we want to see ICE, just like a nicer ICE?
Look, I think ICE probably as an agency has lost so much trust with the American people that you got to do that immigration enforcement in a different way with a different agency. But the issue isn't the name of the agency. The issue is having the safeguards in place so that whatever agency's involved with enforcing our immigration laws, and I believe in enforcing our immigration laws, does it in a way that's constitutional and consistent with American values.
I'm not going to give the Republicans the gift of saying to fund anything. We've seen this agency run the right way under Obama and Biden, who deported thousands and thousands of hardened criminals that were immigrants to this country. The way we're seeing it bastardized right now is not the way we want to see this thing run. There's a way we can do this. If we can figure out how to put my Apple phone in a watch, we can figure out how to run a federal agency. You, Congressman, have a ton of federal employees in your district. I understand. I've been in your district. And you work with the Hispanic caucus really closely. What we're hearing through the caucus from our members is we're under attack. We want law and order. We want to see bad people deported, but we also don't want to see our people killed in the street because we're brown.
Audrey, what do you?
I do think Audie's alluding to an important point here, though. There are clear long-term questions about, with this issue, it's a reminder of how quickly the pendulum can swing on immigration and other issues. How do you ensure that, the Democrats don't become beholden to the activist base with this sort of rhetoric?
Well, I think the important thing is to start every conversation by laying out what the American people want. American people want secure borders, southern and northern. American people want our immigration laws enforced, but they want it done in a way that's fair and humane and consistent with our values. They don't want pregnant women dragged through the streets. They don't want American citizens illegally detained, and they don't want mothers and VA nurses shot dead by federal agents.
The reason why
we can do both.
I'm asking this in part because what I saw happen with the Black Lives Matter movement and defund police, which is you did have a turning point moment where people said, gee, local police are over-militarized. We all should talk about this. And very quickly, that devolved and turned. And then we're in a situation now where we are actually still living in the political reality of those who said everything went woke and it was all because of BLM and all because of defund police. Everything bad that's happened because of that protest movement. Right. So having what you may perceive as the moral hand coming out of a moment doesn't actually guarantee an electoral victory.
That's right. I think, look, activist groups are going to advocate as they should. It's incumbent upon leaders to recognize where the broad swath of the American public is on that issue. During that defund the police movement, I was in local government. I got thousands of emails and messages saying we need to defund the police. I explained to people why that didn't make sense. We can invest in human services, invest in communities, and have strong public safety. And I think that's where we as a Democratic Party need to be.
All right. In the meantime, you've got someone like Rep. Tom, I can never pronounce his last name. You're going to do it for me. Suozzi. Sorry, Tom Suozzi. But here's your statement on Department of Homeland Security vote, saying, I failed to view the DHS funding vote as a referendum on the legal and moral conduct of ICE in Minneapolis. There are some lawmakers who are going to say, look, we don't want to play this game over ICE. People are usually, quote unquote, frontline lawmakers, right, in those purple districts. How are you guys going to help them? Like, are you going to be talking to them? Are you going to be trying to win them over? What's the conversation?
Yeah, that's why I think we need to stay focused on the common sense safeguards that Americans broadly, and I think all Democrats now in Congress agree. Agents shouldn't be masked. They should identify themselves just as our local police do in every community across the country. There should be warrants for arrests and detentions, and there should be real use of force standards and body cameras. And CBP, by the way, should get back to the border. They don't need to have 3,000 CBP agents in Minnesota. They should be securing the border. That's their job.
Okay, so here's a brief palate cleanser. I'm going to show you a video from Minneapolis. Minnesota Nice on display. You've got National Guard troops handing out coffee and donuts to protesters out in the cold. They had been activated by Governor Walz to provide backup to local police amid the ICE surge.
I think that's true Minnesota energy. This is all about community. We're all kind of taking turns or sharing warm drinks, warm food, hand warmers. That's kind of what Minnesota is all about. So I'm glad to see that our National Guard is standing with us because we need it.
Yeah. So I understand you were actually on the emergency call with Governor Walz and House Democrats about next steps. Do I have that right?
That's right.
What are the next steps? I mean, is there something more conversation about Minnesota, or like what was the conversation?
Well, Governor Walz laid out the situation and what people are experiencing on the ground. A lot has happened since we had that call. I know there have been calls between President Trump and Governor Walz and President Trump and Mayor Fry. And we have now Tom Homan replacing Greg Bovino, and hopefully the Trump administration has realized that the American people are rejecting this violent, brutal approach that they're taking, and I hope they will continue to back off. I don't know if that's what will happen, but I hope that's what will happen.
Congressman, Tom Homan has said that one thing that would help is if the city jails would cooperate, especially Minneapolis, would cooperate with ICE and CBP. Do you think they should?
Well, look, jails in Minnesota already cooperate with ICE and CBP.
The state ones do, but not the city ones.
Well, look, those are decisions. I'm a local government guy. I believe in federalism. I don't think local government should be forced literally at gunpoint which is what we're talking about here, to change their policies. I think those are good conversations to be had, but can't be had in a productive way under these circumstances where people are getting gunned down in the streets. And
But how can you enforce immigration laws if you're not letting immigration officials into these jails?
Well, there are many ways you can enforce immigration laws. I mean, one, the prisons in Minnesota, Department of Corrections notifies ICE and CBP when someone is being released if they have a criminal warrant. ICE can go any day of the week and get a criminal warrant, and every law enforcement agency in the country honors a criminal warrant. What the Trump administration is pushing for is essentially the deputization of local law enforcement to federal immigration enforcement. And when you do that, I've been in local government, you violate the trust with your communities. You break trust with your communities, and you're less safe. If communities see local police as immigration enforcement agents, they're not going to come forward and report domestic violence. They're not going to come forward and report what's going on in their communities that local police need to deal with.
But thank you for asking, Alex, because so much of this conversation is around what do we mean when we say cooperation, and how do you play that out?
I also think it's important to note, Trump administration is saying now that's the key issue. Just a few days ago, Secretary Noem sent a letter to Minnesota and said, if you turn over your voter rolls, we'll withdraw the federal agents. If you turn over the voter rolls, what the heck does that have to do with it? What do the voter rolls have to do with public safety in Minnesota? That was the demand the Trump administration was making just a few days ago.
All right, so was that in your group chat? Because we talk about group chats on this show. Is that what lawmakers are talking
unfortunately,
about?
my group chat has been filled with all of this. I wish I had something light and funny from my group chat.
I'll go to Alex for the Alex, what do you have?
Something light and funny, which was the Smithsonian put out a video of the pandas playing in the snow this past weekend, and that went around my group chat.
I need to get in his group chat.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't see how this thing survive in the
Look what we're trying to do for you, okay?
I don't think they can survive in the wild. Go ahead.
And for you?
Look, did y'all see the Kanye thing in the paper? Kanye is back. My wife done told me that it's ye or yay, but that he is back to normal.
Let me translate. This is Kanye West putting out a lengthy note in the Wall Street Journal apologizing for his past rants and pointing to health issues he
From a
believes.
25-year-ago car accident.
Okay, and for you?
Mine is frustration with how long it's taking the D.C. government to plow the darn roads and sidewalks. I almost tripped on my 2-minute walk to Giant the other day. So
I drive a monster truck. I'll take you home.
You got to move to Virginia. You won't have that
right.
problem.
Oh, nice plug for constituent
government
services.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. We're going to be keeping an eye on you and your committee to see if anything happens bipartisan-wise, if there's going to be investigations of any kind. We hope to have you back. Thank you so much. All right, and thank you for waking up with us. Please stay with us because the headlines are next.